My name is RaMona Westbrook, and I'm the manager for DPDA, the Dusable Park Design Alliance, which is a joint venture. It's a joint venture company that is joined with Brook Architecture and Barney Architects. Our agenda this evening is straightforward. It includes hearing an update from the Park District, reviewing the timeline, receiving the presentation on who Dusable was, preparation of the design concept presentation, and following the design concept presentation, we will have a 40-minute group discussion, and we will close out with the presentation of the next steps for this process. So Heather or London, can you share the updates from the Park District?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Gleason. I'm the Director of Planning for the Chicago Park District. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. I'm going to let London share the updates as I'm having some video challenges tonight. So London, if you would introduce yourself and give an update, that would be great. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Heather. As Heather said, I'm London and I serve as the project manager on the Chicago Park District side of this effort. And I would also like to thank everyone for joining today. I'm excited to attend today and to hear everyone's thoughts on the design concepts that our team is presenting today. I wanted to provide everyone an update from Related Midwest on the status of their project. As many of you know, Related Midwest will be constructing 2 new high-rises on the property west of Dusable Lakeshore Drive, and will also be providing funding for the development of Dusable Park. Related Midwest is currently working with the city's Department of Buildings and the Department of Planning and Development to move forward towards permitting this year. We know there have been concerns about the future of the site because of the fate of the previous Chicago Spire development, but Related Midwest has reassured us that they are working with financial partners that are excited about the project and are looking forward to it being completed. So that's our update from CPD and Related, and I will hand it back over to you, RaMona.
Okay, thanks so much, London. We're going to move on. Eric, do you mind reviewing the timeline now?
Sure, thanks, RaMona. My name is Eric Barney. I'm with Barney Architects, principal here for the project. Excuse me. And just a real quick update in terms of where we've been and where we're going in terms of this project. As some of you probably attended the first community meeting that we had back in October. And that was pretty much during our pre-design phase, where it was like a listening session just to get an understanding of what your goals and desires for the project. We are currently here today or tonight to review our schematic design concept based off that listening session that we had with you back in October. And so once we get that information from you, your feedback from the review of our concept, we'll take your comments and then apply that, to the design and further development of the design. And we'll have a presentation for you guys for a date to be determined. We're thinking it'll be somewhere probably in the summer, maybe June, July, where we'll present to you our developed design based on your feedback. And then to round out the project with our contract, we'll prepare a 50% construction documents. So that's pretty much where we're at and where we're going with the project to date. So the next piece is that we would like to maybe give just a brief introduction about who Dusable is. And providing that information is a valuable member of our team, Dr. Reed, who will be providing you with this introduction of Dusable. Christopher Reed is a professor emeritus of history at Roosevelt University, as well as a former Logan Chair of North American Studies. Dr. Reed, could you give us an introduction about Dusable?
Thank you. Good evening. A century ago, 5 words heralded the economic might and greatness of a city. Those words were written by Carl Sandburg. You know the words: to hog butcher for the world, hog butcher for the world, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and nations, freight handler, etc. Now, a century previous to that, a Haitian of remarkable skills and talents placed his imprint on an inhospitable place of land at the mouth of the Chicago River, a site the Potawatomi people who own the land referred to as that spot where the river meets the lake. The handsome, well-educated visionary, Dusable, was a man who was going to leave an imprint and develop a trajectory for economic greatness for Chicago. Dusable was an interesting person. When he left the city in well, it was no city in 1800. When he left 38 hogs to a city that was going to be called Hog Butcher of the World, 30 head of cattle, 44 hens, a grinding stone, even French paintings for the walls of the home that would be occupied by the new owner. He had developed an economic complex that shone the way for what Chicago could be. And it's interesting, for years, people did not acknowledge Dusable as the city's founder and inspiration for the greatness that is followed by this period, the 21st century. Now, it just so happens that while listening to the radio one day in 1985, I was surprised to hear an advertisement over Chicago's largest classical radio station that acknowledged Jean-Baptiste Point Dusable not only as the city's founder, but also as the embodiment of its entrepreneurial and business spirit. Boy, was my heart full of pride. I was in the city of greatness, the city put together by a great man. He was a person who not only made money in Chicago, who set the city on a trajectory towards economic greatness. And by the way, we have secured the 2024 Democratic Convention. And that's a big deal. He was also a man of humanitarian concerns. He married among the people. His wife was a Potawatomi. And of course, this was Potawatomi land. He was known as the Black Chief. He was able to get along with everyone. And that sort of became a model for Chicago. And despite what people say today, we are a city where people do get along. It was only 2 days ago that Black churches in Inglewood welcomed Ukrainian and Venezuelan immigrants to the city into their religious ceremonies. My oldest son's church, Apostolic Faith, in fact, has sent money to the Ukraine. The people of Chicago care about one another and will continue to do so. The role model, Dusable, from the late 18th century. As a visionary, he had no equal until the late 19th century, when the industrial capitals of business made their mark in Chicago. He's a man of remarkable achievement, and I'm glad that the city welcomes him into the pantheon of its founders. He is, in fact, the first founder. And March 4th of every year, the city's birthday is also Dusable Day. Thank you for listening.
I'll try again. Thank you so much, Dr. Reed. That's very illuminating and encouraging and inspiring in so many ways. So I'm going to pick it up from here. In 1987, our then mayor, Harold Washington, dedicated and named this 3.4-acre site at the confluence of the Chicago River and Lake Michigan for Jean-Baptiste Point Dusable, the founder of Chicago. Soon thereafter, the Park District, working with local stakeholders, developed the 2006 Framework Plan that provides the vision and serves as a planning tool for the site. The goals include celebrating our founders' contributions to Chicago and to educate the public accordingly. They also include recognizing the unique confluence of the river and the lake and attracting local and community and citywide, and tourists to the site. It's also intended to create a design that has evolved from the Park District and the steering committee's input and to integrate a significant piece of sculpture. The plan also defines potential spaces. Some of these spaces include the Founders Plaza, a lakefront boardwalk, an outdoor classroom, and a history wall. And the intent of all of these things come together to support the framework plan goals. Additionally, we heard from you. We heard from many stakeholders, including you, and we've learned quite a bit about what people expect to have at this park. As you can see on the slide, people are expecting to have Dusable's heritage celebrated, a place for everyone, a calming and peaceful location. They're wanting the park to be accessible and want to see the incorporation of art from local artists and to embrace the natural beauty of Chicago. These are just a few of the comments or the feedback that we received from the listening sessions that we held earlier. Your responses also, well, actually, when you registered for this event, we asked you for the one word that best describes Dusable. Your responses were very much in line with the feedback that we've already received from the design team and the steering committee. From that, and also from what we've learned, Dusable was a trailblazing journeyman whose determination laid the foundation for this city. Carol is now going to take you through our design concept, which we believe uplifts Chicago and Dusable's story. Carol? And you need to unmute.
I have to unmute. I'm not sure why.
There you go.
Okay. Welcome everybody. It is it's with great pleasure and pride that I have the job of taking you through the design that we have presented to the Park District. We're looking for your comments today. It hasn't been it's been really challenging to work on this project and very rewarding. I'm a native Chicagoan. I was born in this city, and so in a way, this is like the project of a lifetime to do a Founders Park. But that doesn't make it easy, and so we've spent a lot of time trying to balance the demands of this site. It's not very big, and it's kind of hidden, but very public. And we've spent time trying to balance that and create a place that would be the restful, contemplative, educational place you could be proud of. So I have the privilege of showing you through our design proposal. And I'm going to do it by just showing you the features and taking you around to start out with. So to get you oriented to this, this is the Chicago, oh, wait, I can't indicate, Marcus, indicate for me, the Chicago River. No, Marcus can't indicate either.
Someone
Oh,
can.
okay. You can see Lake Michigan at the very bottom of the screen, and at the right-hand side of the screen is the Ogden Slip. So this is our little park, our very important park. One of the things that we struggled with, and sort of like the nuts and bolts side of it, is how do you get to this park? Actually, it was one of the main things, though, that came out of the first listening session. How do we make it accessible? And so what we will be doing is we're creating an access from the north side of the river. So on the north side of the river walk, you can see it marked as point A. And at that point, you'll be walking under Lakeshore Drive, and you'll be entering a park. When you come into the park, the first thing you'll see is our Founders Plaza, but also we've called it the River Plaza, but you'll also see the lake. This was a really important piece of the design, the idea that you would be aware of this park from the lake, and it is at the confluence of the lake and the river. But anyway, as you come in, you'll be walking on a pathway that we'll tell you more about in a minute, but it's planned to be educational. It'll be telling you about Dusable's travels, and you'll be in a park that has basically open green space. It doesn't direct you where to go. but there's a very particular path you can follow. And so I'm going to take you down that path a little bit. When you come in, I don't know, we haven't had any public access to the site, but if you look over Lakeshore Drive, you'll see that the park district has cleaned the site and they've rebuilt the dock wall. So those things are in place. And we have a very large pile of clean fill on the top of on the site. And while this budget for this park is very modest, we wanted to use every resource that we have super effectively. So what we've done is we've taken that fill, that big mound of dirt that you see there now, and we've arranged it in 3 hills. And the hills are significant because they will let you walk up. You can see the little pathway up one hill. You'll be able to walk up to the summit of those hills and look over the lake, but it also provides one of our second entrances, which is from the flyover, the bicycle pedestrian connection that was constructed by the city and opened 2 years ago. That connection is about 25 feet above the site, and so that is also the top elevation of our first hill. We plan to have one other access point to the site. It's at letter B, which is right underneath. Okay, someone said it's Dusable Lakeshore Drive. Yes, I'm getting used to that, actually. Thank you very much. Anyway, you will be able to drop off visitors at point B. You will be able to access the park to drop people off southbound Dusable Lakeshore Drive, which is shown at the very top of your screen, and we'll have a drop off there. And then we're not able to provide parking at this site, so your car will have to leave northbound on Lakeshore Drive, Dusable Lakeshore Drive. But let me show you the rest of the park. When you walk towards the lake, one of the first things you'll see. Oh, okay. So do you want me to do this part, Marcus? Thanks. Okay, maybe it's better presentation. This is the entrance under Lakeshore Drive. We are encouraged that this can be a really wonderful entrance. We have been sort of inspired by some of the under expressway parks that are really popular now, and we're hoping to provide some artwork. This is not part of our current scope, but we think there's huge potential to treat this under bridge as something that's important and exciting. So this is the view you'll see when you walk in, when you walk from Lakeshore Drive, from the Riverwalk going east. You can go to the next slide, Marcus. This is our Founders Plaza. And so you'll be, the first thing you're going to see is our wonderful lakefront. You'll be able to see the lake, you'll be able to see Navy Pier. And in the distance, you'll see our first hill, and you'll see a shade structure that will provide a lookout to the lake. You can go to the next slide. As you walk further down, you can see again that first hill, and then you will be able to see a shade structure that we're constructing. The shade structure, what we are proposing to do is construct it in the dimension of Dusable's house. I think when people see it, they'll be impressed. One of the things we learned doing research, thanks to all of the team, especially Dr. Reed, is that during the 1933 World's Fair, Century of Progress, the Dusable was depicted as living in a cabin. This was not a cabin. And you can see from the size of the shade structure that then people will be able to at least intuit the size of some of his property, some of the estate. Next slide. So when you're in the shade structure, you'll be able to look out into the lake. We think it's important to provide shade on this site. One of the things we've been really concerned with in the design is creating a multi-season park, one that can be enjoyed every season of the year. You have to admit that Chicago seasons are very diverse. So we have a summer that's as hot as our winter is cold. Next slide. From there, we're reserving this southeast corner of the site to create, it will be a rain garden, but it'll show some of the plants that you would expect to see in Chicago when it was not a town yet on this site. It was a very marshy site. The channel of the river was not very established. And so we'll be showing off some of those plants. We're planning to provide some boardwalks through them so you can get actually to the edge of the park, to the edge of the lake. Next slide. We've renamed the outdoor classroom as the Exchange Plaza, and that's in honor of Dusable's talent and skill as a trader and a manager, but also this is Chicago's heritage. And in our Exchange Plaza, we'll have fixed seating. You can see it here. We're trying to provide some different types of seating so you're comfortable there sitting alone, or you're comfortable sitting in a larger crowd. The Park District has proposed, for example, that they'd like to show their movies in the park, in this park, which means that you could sit in the step seating, you could sit on the lawn. We've tried to create a real casual contemplative space. Next slide. As you continue around, we wanted this to be educational, both about Dusable, but also about Chicago and our landscape. So as you walk along the Ogden Slip, we're planning to have a grove of native trees. Trees did grow along the river. They were in pockets like this where the river could keep them irrigated. And we think that that'll provide an opportunity for shade and just a different environment. In this view, you also see our two other hills. Next slide. This slide shows our connection to Lakeshore Drive. You'll be able to walk underneath that connection. Adjacent to the park is an area that's owned by the Illinois Department of Transportation. They keep equipment and materials there. So we're using that, the need to sort of shield that area as a chance to create a history wall. You can see it here, and to give a visual barrier to the underside of Lakeshore Drive. And you can see here people walking off of off the flyover. So when you walk off the flyover, you can go to the next slide, Marcus. You'll be arriving at the top of our highest hill, which is about 25 feet. And you will be able to see the lakefront. You'll be able to look back on the city. I do want to say that we are designing all the hills to be accessible. So the slope will be able to be navigated by wheelchair. And you can see our first little drawing to show that concept right here. One of the other things we're looking at is we're trying to make these, and I know one of the questions we'll get about bicycles and skateboards. And while you'll be able to walk your bike or skateboard, right now we're planning that where the hills are steep, we'll have a ground cover. And where they're not, you can sit on them to use the site, we'll have a grass. You can also see that we're planning drifts of, you keep going, Marcus, it's okay. Drifts of native flowers and grasses that would line the edges of the park. This is our accessible drop off. It was really important to find this place and create the opportunity so that everybody can visit the park. So if you're dropped off here and you're of limited mobility, you'll be able to walk a flat path to the lakefront and to the other places on the site. Next slide. We're really challenged to make this park for all seasons. And as we've gone through the design process, we've tried to imagine what the park would be like in different seasons. So here you can see what a fall would like, celebrating the beautiful change of seasons, fall colors. Next slide. And we want to make this an exciting place to be in the winter also. You go to the next slide. Misa Inoue, our landscape architect, is going to talk a little bit about the materials. These are, I want you to understand that these are really conceptual selections right now, and we'll keep on developing the actual materials. But this slide would give you a good idea of the different materials that we're considering. Misa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Misa Inoue, landscape architect with DPDA. As Carol mentioned, the images in the bubbles that you see on the screen, those are to communicate at this time our concept and the feelings that we are imagining for each of the spaces. So the actual forms and materials might change during the next course of design process after we receive your feedback. But these are the atmosphere and feelings that we have in mind at this time. Our goal is to be able to use, provide natural materials as much as possible while ensuring that the park is accessible. And for example, after you enter from the southwest corner of the site under the Dusable Lakeshore Drive, we have large and paver walk that runs through a field of decomposed granite. Decomposed granite is a material that's often used for nature trails and gardens. So many of us are very already familiar with it. And also the boardwalk through the wetland, wet prairie area closer to the lake on the east. The wet prairie and wetland feature was already proposed in a 2006 framework plan. So that's what we would like to carry over to this, the design of the Dusable Park. Stone benches at the lower hill, just by the entry plaza, that will have plenty of seatings for public events. For example, movies in the park that Carol mentioned earlier. The plantings, again, during the next phase, we will nail down the planting palette. But what we can share with you right now is that we will utilize a variety of native trees to the region, and native forbs, grasses, and ground covers. The central portion of the park is left open as an open lawn areas for a variety of public programmings. On the east, we again, taking a cue from the 2006 framework plan, we are trying to maintain open views towards the lake, and except for the pavilion, the see-through pavilion that we are proposing by the wet prairie. On the west, there is an undulating wall, and that you saw earlier in the renderings. And that wall is going to be a canvas for artwork that we think will be interesting. And we can show you more about our ideas on the next slide after we finish up these materials slide. Again, and on the west, right behind the undulating landscape wall, we are proposing a tree lines. This tree line has two purposes. One is to screen the traffic on Dusable Lakeshore Drive, and also to try to screen the noise. And these two purposes were also based upon the feedback we had received from the first community meeting from the audience that that attended. So those are the main concepts that we have for the landscape materials and the overall composition of the space. So next, we would like to share with you our current concepts about the art installation and what opportunities we might have. Okay. So this will be back to RaMona or Carol.
RaMona.
Okay, certainly.
We could
So,
talk about it together, but go for it, RaMona.
all right, here we go. What you'll see on this slide are a couple of images that show the opportunities where we'd like to tell a little bit more about Dusable's story and about Chicago. At the underpass, we'd like to take that opportunity to incorporate some murals on the columns and even on the underside of the underpass that might tell more about Dusable, his relationship with Haiti, and even the Potawatomi and his wife. There on the ground, we're planning a timeline graphic that would actually start to tell his story in a timeline manner, so you can see how he progressed through, from his home all the way up to Chicago. We're also planning to indicate places, what we're calling them Dusable journey markers, because we know that he traveled and stayed in a few places before he actually settled in Chicago. And then even after he left Chicago, stayed in other places. So we want to indicate those journey markers and take that opportunity to tell a little bit more about his story. We've also indicated a location for potential rotating art location. You'll see that that is close to the lake on the east side of the park. And then also, we had also wanted to try to pay homage to the Council of Three Fires, which was an organization, a very loose organization that gathered a number of the Native American tribes in this area. So we're thinking a lighting element that could celebrate that council, in addition to other markers that would celebrate the Potawatomi as well. And then on the west side of the site, as Misa has already indicated, a mosaic mural wall that would be our history wall that could tell more about the life of Dusable. I think that's all we're showing for now, but there's one thing that I think we want to keep in mind is what Carol has stated earlier. This is a schematic design, and that we're still evolving and developing concepts and ways to tell the story. I think we can go to the next slide.
So what we've tried to do is create a park that would be prominent, but still restful, that would be contemplative, but exciting and historical. And we think that we have the right combination of elements. Yes, the design needs to be developed, but we see it being a celebration on the lake, a celebration about Dusable, and a celebration about Chicago. So this is what you'd see as you went over Lakeshore Drive at night. And obviously on a Navy Pier fireworks day. And then you go to the last slide, Marcus. And we think that we can make it, people be aware of it from other parts of the city. This is, if you were, for example, on a tour boat on the Chicago River. So we've tried to take each vista that the park enjoys as part of the design and use it to our advantage. What are we doing next? Are we doing our video and then questions, or?
I think we're
Yeah.
going to have the video, and then I'm going to thank you. And then we're going to start the discussion.
Okay, good.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Ramona.
So now we'd like to begin our discussion about the design. So please ponder the question, what does or does not resonate with you about the design? We're going to use the chat to manage the discussion. So if you'd like to respond to a question or provide any additional remarks, we ask.
We love compliments too. Don't forget
We
about.
like those too. Put those in bold. We ask that you enter your name in the chat and you will be called upon in the order that your name was entered. We also ask, and we kindly ask, that you limit the length of your question or remarks so that everyone will have an opportunity to join in the discussion.
Mona, may I ask everyone if you could try turning on your video? I know that Mr. Johnson said that it was disabled. So just wanting to make sure that you can turn on your video if you would like. Is it impossible for you to turn on your videos? Can someone respond?
Is anyone having trouble turning on their
Okay.
video?
Yeah, so I'm going to do this again. So can everyone speak? Can someone just try turning on their mic?
Hello.
Okay, all right,
Testing.
there we go. I do apologize. Apparently, I had inadvertently disabled that. So again, I apologize.
Still no
So I,
video.
Hmm?
Still no
I
video.
think still no video.
Still no video.
Video and audio is
You
working.
can see me.
Testing one.
No video.
Okay, just give 1 second, please. Let's find out why this is acting this way.
No stress.
Your video is not on either, Julia.
Okay, ask all to unmute. And
Audio and video are working for me.
okay.
Yeah, audio and video are working for me as well.
Okay, again, thank you. I do apologize. So, as RaMona had indicated, we're putting, if you would like to make a question or comment, if you could put your name in the chat and we could spotlight you doing so. I do, though, believe I saw Mr. Justin Schubert, your hand was raised. And so why don't we begin with you and then I will go through the list. Thank you so very much. And again, my apologies.
No worries. Okay, so everything is absolutely gorgeous. I'll make sure that I keep this quick. It's a two-parter. So when it comes to security and the renderings and things like that, looking at where potentially there would be cameras would be good. We walk through the underpass to Target almost daily, and there's cameras there. You know, we feel a little bit safer with that. Outside of that, the other thing is we're in Lake Point Tower, so we have to see the ambulances and the fire trucks drive over a lot of that beautiful landscape all summer while things are going on, and even into the winter when, you know, there's issues. So I just don't, I want to make sure that when you're planning all of that beautiful landscape and those trees and everything, that that's a consideration for being able to get EMS to people in that region. That's all.
Thank you so very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Schubert. I think the next person that had a question is Adele B. I hope I said that correctly. Or is it Adelie? Adelie, can you unmute?
Yes, it's correct. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Thank you so
Yeah,
very
it is
much.
Adele.
Adele, okay, that's what I thought. So sorry. Please pose your question and or query.
I had asked about any facilities, any place for bathrooms, restrooms. Good design, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I think we should let the Park District respond to that.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Heather Gleason with the Chicago Park District. So we have heard this request before, and at the moment, we do not have the budget to put in permanent restrooms for the park. When we have park spaces, we often use more of the portable approach, but we certainly will continue to look and see if we can find budget to do more than that. At the moment, that is not in our budget for the park. As Carol mentioned, we have a lot of soil on site, and it takes a lot of money to remove soil. So I think they've done a nice job here with trying to incorporate some of those things into the design itself. But we will continue to keep looking. We've heard this question before, so thank you for the question. We'll continue to investigate.
Thank you.
Thank you
Heather.
very much, Heather. Our next member, Mr. Nathan Mason, you would like to make a comment or a question?
No, actually, I want to introduce myself. I'm Nathan Mason, the Curator of Public Collections and Public Art for the City of Chicago for the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. And we are sort of a new partner here, but we are, what I want to let everyone know is we are coming on board and running a public art process for the pedestrian viaduct. We have met with the developer, we're meeting with planning, we're meeting with the park district. And so there will be a new public art process about what will happen to the pedestrian viaduct to create some meaningful artwork for the entrance of Dusable Park. So that process has not yet begun, and there will be more announcements coming soon, probably a month, 2 months, as things are developed. And there will be a new, the city does a standard, we have a project advisory panel where we'll have representatives from all the associated agencies, community, professional artists, and we'll talk about and develop a new mission statement, and then do a call for artists and come up with design proposals for everybody to look at and review, and we'll ask for more input specifically about how the artwork for the pedestrian viaduct should be developed and what it should address. So that's what I want to let people know. If there's interest, I think the easiest email for everybody to refer to would be our standard publicart@cityofchicago.org. So publicart@cityofchicago.org, and just put Dusable Park in there, and I'll look at it and we can start a list of interested people and commentary, okay? And if you have any questions and you want to ask me, you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mason. I
Mr.
believe
Mason,
that,
I'd like to say something.
sorry, Carol, I'm so
Mr.
sorry. Go
Mason,
ahead.
Thank you so much. We've worried about that underpass since we started this project. I think it has huge potential. So we're ready to work with you about it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put the email in the chat.
Great, thank you. Julia, I think we may have skipped some
Yeah, I
people.
see. I was
Okay.
about to go back. I do apologize. John Lowe, you had to make a query or a comment?
Yes, I wanted to make a quick comment. Thank you. Really, I think the design is much improved over the last time I saw it. So kudos to you all for that. Thank you, Dr. Reed, for a very inspiring discussion about Dusable and his place and his context and his importance. Couple of things quickly is that I don't know, well, I like that you're calling them hills now instead of mounds. That's much improved. Because mounds are sacred spaces and not to be trifled with. So I like movement to hills. I know that the artist rendering was just an artist rendering, but whether by chance or the creator's grace, I saw that you had a row of 7 trees and then a row of 4 trees. Of course, the number 7 and the number 4 are sacred to most Great Lakes Indian tribes, and it would be a wonderful way of just encapsulating that those important numbers. I like the fact that Dr. Reed, and it sounds like the rest of the group is emphasizing that this is Potawatomi homeland and actually unceded territory of the Potawatomi. But as far as the lighting, I was thinking rather than honoring the Council of the Three Fires, since the Council of Three Fires wasn't really in Chicago, but if we did something like one light honoring the ancestors, one light honoring the historic tribes, all of the indigenous peoples of Northern Illinois, and one light honoring contemporary Native peoples in Chicago. I think to me that would be much more important and profound and connected to past, present, and future. Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
that.
much, Mr. Lowe. We
I
do
think,
have a
Mr. Lowe,
question
we were
from,
actually looking at that and considering, these three lights could celebrate a number of things about DuSable, Chicago. And I really do appreciate your comment because I think that it really speaks to what we're considering as well.
Yeah, I'd like to say a word to that too, because we really think that the interpretation of some of these elements, while we want to guide it, I think your idea is the way we would guide it, that you could have several interpretations, but it's supposed to remind you of who made the city and how important they are.
Yeah.
okay. So I'll go to a question that was put in the chat. Mr. Kaiser asks, why so much crushed granite? What is the purpose? It takes away from green space.
Did you want me to comment further on that?
Oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, well, let me first say I think you're solving the problem of access from the north was very creative, particularly accessible access. So compliments on the way you did that from this flyover. But as I look at all of that space, when I see hard surface, particularly now when I see it crushed granite, I think it takes away from the concept of a park. Any park I've ever been in that has that much hard surface and it isn't welcoming. So I'm not sure I understand why there's so much of it. The other thing is I'd like to put in a plea for more trees. You mentioned about the shading and I think that's critical and more shading would be appropriate. You don't say anything about gardens, landscaping, but hopefully there'll be incorporated some perennial flowers.
Yes.
And another opportunity for, and I like your continuous discussion about public art. I'd like to recommend that we have more seating than we have in most of our parks and that you take this opportunity to incorporate art in the seating because as I travel the world, I'm always looking for and impressed by cities that have had creative functional art in their seating. So, but if you could, if you'll take those comments in context, but could you possibly address the issue of why there's so much granite, crushed granite?
I can talk about that.
Okay.
We've been working back and forth with the park district about programming this park and what would be the most maintainable, hospitable surface. I don't know if what we're showing now is a final amount of paving or turf or ground cover, but what we're trying to balance, and thank you so much for your comments, because I think you're spot on, but what we're trying to balance, and we'll come back with more information at the next design review, but what we're trying to balance is a space where you could have discrete, because this is a contemplative park, but the ability to have festivals or art gatherings and make it easy to maintain. And so when we come back next time, I'm sure you'll find it somewhat adjusted, but that's the major reason is we want to find the most maintainable. I mean, turf has a problem too. If it gets too much use, it gets worn out and then the parks look really bad too. So we're trying to find that sweet spot and we'll continue to work to get there. But thank you.
I would ask you to defer more for the functionality and the beauty of the park as opposed to the cheapness and inexpensive maintenance of it, because whenever you've seen it, whenever there's hard surface, it's not welcoming, it's not park-like. So thank you.
We have a comment from Mr. Begay. He said that I hope in the Founders Plaza, the history and importance of Kitty Hawa, oh my goodness.
Kitty Hawa.
Kitty Hawa is explained. Her
Yes.
connection to Native inhabitants was crucial for Dusable's training.
Yes, we
Um,
are planning to celebrate Kitty Hawa in Dusable's story as well.
Okay, thank you for helping me with the pronunciation of the name. I was having a senior moment. Please give me grace. Miss Priscilla Prims, you indicated that you could not unmute yourself. Did you have a question, and can you unmute yourself now? If not, then we will circle back. Just please put another note in the chat. I think that Carlos Bossard, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, had a question. Carlos? Are you there?
Here's he's having audio problems.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move down to the next question. Let's say MM says a great initial design, the intentional use of the parkscape to be an educational learning tool about Dusable is awesome. Would be nice to see more color incorporated and less green and gray.
Okay.
Mr.
I like
Bruce
that Mark
Johnson.
has put up the very colorful drawing, but yes, no, it's our intention that it be a very natural palette, but that it also incorporate artwork. And right now, we showed it in one drawing, but we are really going to rely on the plantings for color too.
Thank you very much for that, Carol. Mr. Johnson had a question. The flyover restrictions from the pedicaps, quad caps, etc. A question?
I'm not sure I understand the question. RaMona,
Mr.
you?
Johnson, could you elaborate a little bit more on your statement?
I think they're saying they can't unmute or
Okay, so
turn on the video.
I'm just trying to, if you mute all participants, okay. I want to cancel. Allow participants to unmute themselves. All right, now try it.
This is Mr. Johnson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you've been shutting all of us off, but the host committee. Okay. So here's what I'm concerned about. We have an access from the flyover bridge, which I think is great. But as a user of that flyover bridge on several times a week, especially as we enter the summer season, we get a plethora of pedicabs, quad bikes, and these things that people rent. Are they going to veer over here and enter into Dusable Park? I see that as a big distraction, and it should be restricted. Because, I mean, if you use that flyover bridge, they are a pain in the rear, put it politely.
Who wants to
That's my
respond?
comment.
I can respond.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Heather.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Really appreciate your comments. Yes, I think that looking at how people are able to come off of the flyover into the park is really important. I appreciate you bringing up the pedicab issue and some of the other vehicles that we have on the lakefront. It's wonderful that we have all these interesting vehicles people can use, but we are likewise concerned even about bikes and how they would come into the park on the flyover. We're thinking that we might make them dismount. And I assume that we will need to come up with some new rules for what kinds of traffic can come into the park. Not all those details are worked out yet. We are going to be talking to CDOT about this connection to the flyover since it's built there. And we will work with them in terms of how to manage that traffic, but a very fair statement. And thank you very much for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah, and one quick comment would be to, if you implemented some kind of a barrier, in other words, you know, some kind of a structural barrier that would not allow them to enter. I mean, these things are big, and so if we restrict the size of the entrance, guess what? They can't come in.
Mhm. Okay, we will definitely take a look at all of those options.
We have a comment from Miss Lisa Khan. She's very interested in the timeline feature and what specifically will be included, Chicago as well as other places where Dusable spent time.
So I think I can respond to that. We've not completely defined exactly what will be included, but we do know that Dusable stopped in Peoria before he came here. He also had a stop in I can't recall, Indiana. I want to say Michigan City, Indiana. He also before he came to the spot that we've identified as his home in Chicago, he was in Pinery, Michigan for a while when he married his wife, Kitty Hawa. They had a ceremony here, and then they also went to Cahokia, Illinois for a ceremony. And then when he left Chicago, he went to Missouri. I don't remember it all. I have it written down, but so he was in a couple of places before he settled in Chicago, and even after he settled in Chicago. And we think his moving around and his establishing locations really add to the background of his story, and it would be an interesting way to tell a little bit more about Dusable.
Thank you, RaMona. Everyone should be able, if you like, to turn on your video and you will be able to unmute. I do apologize. Priscilla Mims, you indicated that more traditional seating for older people with backs that is not low to the ground. Did you want to elaborate any on that?
No, that's the one thing I noticed. The seating I saw there I don't think would be very comfortable for older people. So that's something, and I know you're looking for a natural look. So that's a challenge for you, I guess. Related to that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that we're planning on adding more seating. So please don't be discouraged by what you see. The intent is that this will evolve and we'll add more as we go.
The other related question was, it appears this is really directed toward the lake. And I'm wondering if there are going to be good views of the cityscape. And of course, that's important too, because that's really the heritage, what Dusable's heritage gave to us is the city.
Yes, I agree with you. This is Carol. And that's, you hit on the reason that we were really intent on making these hills as high as we can. In fact, we welcomed the requirement to connect to the flyover because it gave us a good opportunity to make an overlook where you can see back to the city. Right now, at the height of the you won't be able, you'll see this, you can't not see the skyline when you're standing at Navy Pier or on this park, but you'll get a magnificent view from the top of the hill, and you'll get good views from the rest of the park. And that's been one of our major design objectives.
Yeah, I think we have an image of that.
I
Maybe
think it's
not.
more in our video.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, than the PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right, I think that Arnold Romeo had a question or comment.
I'm still listening. I'm still listening.
Okay.
Okay.
No,
All right,
thank you.
well,
I would say my video is still muted, but thanks for the audio.
We've tried to I'm not sure what's going on. So again, I do apologize. We'll still continue to work through it.
That's okay. We'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll find him. 1 second, Julie.
Okay, thank you. I think that Rose Murin has a comment or a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rose Meyer, and I'm the director of the Darcy McNichol Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies at the Newberry Library. I apologize, I wasn't able to make the first community meeting, so I defer to John and some of the other folks, the Native folks that are on the call here, if this was already discussed and they already said this was fine. But I just wanted to ask about the use of the term founder, and I wanted to encourage you all to maybe rethink the use of that term for the plaza. And, I know you haven't developed the content for the history wall and for the timeline, but I think that using that term suggests that Dusable was the first person here to make Chicago a site of trade and to make it a site of interchange for many people. And that's just simply not true. Native people were here, well before he arrived, and Chicago was an established site of trade for at least 100 years prior to his arrival. And we have, primary source historical materials show that when the first European settlers were, coming through this area in the late 17th century, they talk about Chicago as a place of trade. So, I don't have a problem with recognizing Dusable as an important person in Chicago's history and recognizing him as, the first non-native person to build a settlement here. But I really would encourage you to rethink the use of that term, because it erases the work that Native people did for centuries before he arrived to make this a site of trade. So just wanted to add that note.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a suggestion on another name?
That's a good question. Let me think about it. I
Okay.
wonder if John has any ideas, or some of the other folks on the call, if anybody else has ideas, and I'm happy to think about it and think about what might be a better way to phrase that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your comment as well.
Linda Musgraves indicated, I really like that there are no plans for vendors to be in this park. Also, Ms. Musgrave has indicated, and you could speak to that, please unmute. The concern with the 3 lights that will impact migrating birds and just the impact of the light pollution of the sky. Please reconsider the lighting and look to other lighting, options.
I can talk to that, Julia. We are very aware of the hazard that lighting can be for migrating birds, and we intend this to be one of our areas of research as we go forward with this design. I don't know if it'll look exactly like we're showing, or that we'll find that it's too hazardous at all, but it's one of the top design criteria that we've identified, and we intend to reach out, do the research, and find out what is safe.
Thank you very much, Carol. Mr. Martin, you said that you're requesting to record this meeting locally. I'm going to deny this request because it goes to Chicago Park District, and they're the ones that are responsible for recording this meeting locally. Heather, did you want to add anything? You can unmute.
I can step in. We're working with.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is London from the Park District. Well, we're working with our communications and our social media team. This will, once this meeting's done, we will get this posted to our YouTube page. So this will be available for all to see then.
And I am able to unmute, so I can also add that we have a park page for Dusable as well that we can update and add the video too, so that people have access to it, because you're making really great comments. So we really appreciate all your time and effort on this. Thank you.
Julia, is it okay if I respond to Ron Henderson's comment about the
yes,
art?
please do.
I'm sorry. I had put my hand in, and I put a question in after John Lowe, and I haven't been called on yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we're so sorry. Please.
Is this Anastasia?
This is Anastasi, yes.
Anastasi, I'm sorry, please go on.
Okay, go ahead,
Yes,
Anastasia.
hi,
and I
I'm
do
Anastasi
apologize.
Sanat. Hi, I'm Anastasi Sanat. I'm the president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association of Illinois. First of all, great initial design. I really think it's great. I, piggyback off of the other comments, but I do remember asking in my comment, will the riverboats be able to dock for visitors to enjoy the park during the summer? That was my initial question.
I can start that, but I really would like to hand it over to Heather for our London. There is potential to land here, either by water taxi or by private boat. Right now, it's not part of the design, one reason being cost. And then I'm going to let Heather or our London talk about policy and what the Park District thinks about that right now.
Sure. Thank you, Carol. So this is Heather Gleason again, everyone. I don't know that we have a specific policy, for or against. I don't know quite what if your comment is concerned about them docking or if you would like to see that happen. One of the reasons it's not part of the design now is we had to reconstruct the seawall as part of the environmental remediation. So several years prior to this design process starting, we were able to get a $6.8 million funding stream as a part of an EPA settlement to remediate the site so that we could finally develop it as a park. And as part of that work, we had to put in the seawall. And so that is partly why we don't necessarily have a landing site right now. But it is certainly something that as we go forward in the future, should funding be found, and that's something that the community is interested, we could certainly explore. So I don't know if you want to elaborate and let us know if you are for or against it. I'm not sure where the comment was headed.
I'm definitely for it, and I understand now why it's not there. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sorry, I'm scrolling back down and I do apologize for the earlier omission. I always am mispronouncing your name and I do apologize. Could you please pose your question? I had this problem last time. So again, I apologize. Go ahead, Etzer.
It's okay, Julia.
Okay.
No problem. Okay. So thank you for this opportunity again. So thank you to Professor Reed for this magisterial presentation of DUSAB, and thank you for the design team for this initiative. Well, after 36 years since Mayor Harold Washington dedicated the 3.4 acres of land to Jean-Baptiste Point DUSAB, finally it looks like we're gonna have a park. That is something to celebrate and something that, and we appreciate the effort that everybody put in this. And so I have a couple of comments. So first I would say that, okay, my default position, as president of Disabled Heritage Association, is dual. First, let me see that. Okay, putting myself in the shoes of Mayor Washington, who dedicated the park. What was his vision? If he were to come back and say, he would see the design, how would he feel about it? Is it what he had in mind? Is it the vision that he had? Is it something that's something that really how would you feel for that about this effort? And the second position is that the vision of DUSAB himself, say that being what he represents for the city, if you were to come back and and he would see this, how would he feel? So that would be the two perspectives that I have on this great initiative that that CPD is taking on, and this to respond to Rose, that is a very good comment. I think it's Rose, right? Very good comment. But I think Dusable Park has a statement to make, in terms of a place where different cultures can live together, can cohabit. There would be the place where there is that. It's not just the place where the river and the lake meet. There would be a place for a confluence of cultures. And Dusable and Kittihawa, they showed that example. They had each other's back. And I think that this park, has a way to reflect that, the affection that they had for each other, and also the partnership that they had between them. So we're not trying to wedge, some kind of the wedge between Dusable and Kittihawa. They both have their place in this park. So having said that, wondering if somebody coming from the lake, coming from the river, and they go by, what indication is there for them to see that, okay, but this park, is a tribute to a Black man of Haitian descent and to a Potawatomi woman, who was his partner in every sense of the word. Where is that? Is that sense we have that?
Thank you, Esther, for the question. I just want to make sure that the team can respond and we get to the other questions. So thank you so very much. RaMona, Carol, Heather.
I'd like to just actually respond to you, Edser, and I think there are a few other questions that kind of question. I think Ron Henderson is commenting about the art, and John Lowe is asking about the Potawatomi people. The intention of this concept is that it is very loose at this time, and this is our first pass at the design concept, and we're going to continue to develop this, but we have every intention of bringing in the story of the Potawatomi, of Kittihawa, of Dusable, and his unity. Just the things that he was able to accomplish, we know for a fact that he would not have been able to do that without his connection to others. So we are very intentional and very focused on making sure that that story comes forth, because Chicago is a city of many cultures, and we would be remiss if we didn't bring that story forward. So please know that we intend to do that. And I think Ron had a comment about the art that we're planning to show at the entry, and that's something that we really would like to do. It's not that we're going to do that only. We're just wanting to address the appearance of the underpass and would like to use that opportunity to celebrate him even more. There will be several installations throughout the park that will tell the whole story of Dusable, and that's our intent. Carol, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that was a really good explanation. Thank you, RaMona. We are very interested in your comments because they inform the design.
Yes. Heather?
Sure, I can add just a little bit. RaMona, I also think you did a great job explaining it. We are at the early stages, and I always thought at the Park District, because we design parks all the time, that the toughest part of this project is getting the story right. It's really tough. We have a wonderful legacy from both our Native American peoples as well as Dusable, and finding that balance and really helping that story come through, I think is going to be one of our biggest challenges. And we're really appreciative for all of you who are lending your time and your comments to making sure that we work together to develop the story so that it lands right in the park. Thank you.
Mhm. I'd like to read
it-
some of the positive comments too.
Well, there was one from Mr. Kaiser that he says, if no one else asks, can you address the issue of dogs?
Okay, I think that falls to me. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. We have not addressed the dog issue in this concept or plan yet. Thank you for raising it. I think we take that back and we'll talk about that at the Park District. Generally speaking, in the Park District, as long as a dog is on a leash, they are permitted to be in the park, though we have occasionally taken the step of prohibiting dogs. So if people have feelings or thoughts on that one way or another, please feel free to let us or the design team know as we continue the design process, and we will have to come back with more detail on that later.
So RaMona, you wanted to read some of the other questions. I was just trying to get to those that had queries, but I'll leave that up to you.
Sure. There was one comment that said there was a great initial design. I think we already heard from her. Let's see. Now I can't find them. There was a
I'll go
question.
back.
Okay, you go ahead and ask the questions. I'll
I'll
just.
go back. Okay. All right. Thank you. Miss Mim says that scooters and skateboards in the park may be an issue. Gail Spring has asked us, is there may be another access point for the ramp from the flyover bridge?
Simone Wood said, love the illuminating 3 lights. Entry to the park I can see is challenging, but hopefully that can be worked out for people that are mobility challenged. Sitting on rocks is not very comfortable. And I think we've addressed those concerns, Simone. If not, perhaps you'd like to elaborate. And if so, we'll move on.
Butler Adams asked, will there be any type of statue of Dusable in the park? The bus at Michigan Avenue is so small, this seems like the location for something more visually prominent.
Did you want me to address that and then, or?
Sure.
Okay, sure. I can start and then please from the design team, please weigh in. So thank you for your question, Butler. Really appreciate it. Yes, so the framework plan absolutely called for a sculpture of Dusable. It actually named the artist, Mr. Martin Pereira is the person who's named in the framework plan. In the contract that we have written for this team, for the design team, they are helping to identify where art can be placed, not necessarily commissioning the piece completely through this. I think that's something that we're going to have to work out as we go forward in design. But I know a lot of folks have asked us, like, where is the statue going to go? And I think that's part of what the team is trying to determine in terms of telling the story. Where does it make sense to have those art pieces? Do we have more than one space where we can have rotating art in different interpretations? So I think very much how Dusable is represented and how we approach that is very much on the table and open for discussion.
Thank you very much, Heather. Chaka Strong has a question. At the Park Pavilion, the structure represents Dusable's home, correct? Is the structure square footage the actual size of his home? And if the structure represents his home, what is the chance to display the history of his home? And did he have children? Having examples of home lights displayed in the park would be great.
I can answer that. While we have been working on this design, we've been super aware that while the park is dedicated to Dusable and it's also educational,
We've been super aware, though, that it's not a museum. So in a way, we don't want to build an exhibit. But we do want to help people think about that and to inform their knowledge, their historical knowledge. So again, this will be part of our development, but I think that when you're in the shelter, you will be able to see information about Dusable. And I think the questions, I have those same questions. I think he did have children. I remember reading that.
He had two.
Yeah. And we'll provide as much as that information as we can reasonably do, but it's not our intention to make this a museum or a monument. Then that's not our design. That's not our design. That's not what they told us to do in the design either.
Thank you very much, Carol. We have a question. Arnold Romeo put in the chat, Canada ? Arnold, did you want to elaborate on this?
I'm sorry, what are you referring to, Julia?
Sorry, in the chat, you said Canada and they had question marks.
Oh,
You
that
put
was,
it in its.
it was talking about locations where Dusable was before he settled in Chicago. And there was some information about that in some of the history that I've read.
If you can share that with us, that would be great.
Okay. And then the other thing I if I could, I think I would like to participate in the discussion about founder and not founder, because the draft of the ordinance that we worked on used the term, and when they asked me for a term for today, I put that term in. And so I'd like to at least be able to defend that for folks who does not want founder to be in. I'm happy to have that discussion. It's not for here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold. There was a lot in the chat about the conversation around founder, so I'm just skipping down. I think Sergey Pierre-Louis would like to make a comment.
Yes, but I think Carlos Bossar had raised his hand before me. So in all fairness, should he speak first?
Okay, well, that's very kind. I did not see that Mr. Prasad had his hand up again. So Mr. Prasad and then followed by Sergey.
Well, thank you so
Serge.
much. Yeah, thank you, Serge. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Bossard. I'm the Director of Programs and Museum Practice at the Haitian American Museum of Chicago. Our mission is to promote and preserve Haitian art, culture, history, and community in Chicago and beyond. And just to answer Ms. Westbrook's question, what's resonating, I think, with us at the museum is really the respect that was taken in the draft design to not only uplift, showcase, and celebrate Haitian heritage, but really and truly the connection to the Potawatomi indigenous peoples. I just wanted to say and put out there, we would love to collaborate with any kind of history wall initiative or connections with Haiti, collaborating on any kind of art educational or initiatives, exhibits or displays. Anything that you need, we're here. I'll drop my information in the chat. But really, thank you all for taking the time and putting your talents together to put together this park. We're super excited and hopefully it'll come to fruition. Yeah, thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I see that it's Sergey and then Nicholas Paul, you will be next. I'm sorry, I skipped over your name.
Yes, thank you, Julia. And so this is Serge Pierre-Louis. I'm both with the Dusable Park Coalition and the Dusable Heritage Association. First, I'd like to congratulate the Design Alliance, the park design for the work they have done so far. It is so daunting to get it right, as Carol was saying earlier, because of all the cultural and historical background. But it seems to me you are working very hard at it. and you are on the right path. I must say at the same time that I don't think that we are there yet, because some of the comments that were made last time at the steering committee meeting was that when somebody looks at the current design from the river or from the Dusable Drive or from the lake, there is something missing to make it a unique, iconic park. It looks very nice, and all the details, those are improvements. But if you are on a boat tour and you look at that piece of land, is there really something that grabs you and that wants you, that make you say, what is this park? What is it about? So I think we have some ways to go in that sense. And I can see we are proposing the tree lights, the fires. There is also the proposal to put a monument that celebrates the first family in Chicago, Dusable and Kitty Howard, and their 2 children. So I really think we should be considering seriously adding something that would make it worth for somebody to go and visit the park, because there is something unique to be said there, to be seen. My last comment has to do with the whether to call Dusable a founder or not. I agree with Arnold Romero. That's a discussion that we should have, perhaps with Professor Reed, an academic discussion, perhaps not here. The only thing I would say about that is that when the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago declared that Dusable was the founder of the city, I don't think they were looking at it so much as he's taking the place of the people who were there before him. They were looking at it from a different angle. This is a Black man who came from somewhere else. He was the first immigrant. And instead of trying to remove the people who were there, he got along with them. He married one of them. They did business together. So it is a very positive connotation of using the word founder in that sense. He founded a multicultural group there that included the Native Americans. So I don't think it's trying to put down another culture or another ethnic group by using the word founders. But certainly we'll have the opportunity to address that in another forum. But congratulations again to the team. You are working very hard. Let's keep doing that. And as we are bringing somebody like Nathan from the DCAS, I hope we're gonna keep in mind that aspect of the unique history behind this park, and that Nathan will take into account all the groups who have been working for years on trying to put art on the park and make sure that we do it all together. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I have a
Thank
quick,
you.
could I respond really quickly to Serge? Thank you so much for your comments. I had one follow-up thing for you.
Yes.
And that is, so you were talking about something unique that really grabs you. And I heard some of those comments in the steering committee. Are, in your mind, is that a really significant piece of art, or are you referring more to some kind of activity or something that we're not catching in the design?
No, more specifically, I'm thinking of a piece of art. The position of Dusable Park is really the welcoming point to the world coming into Chicago from Lake Michigan. As you know, the transatlantic trade that was taking place at the time of Dusable was so important and contributed to the development of what we now know as Chicago. So to have somebody there, a first family welcoming you as you are entering the city, is so powerful. And I think to miss that opportunity would be unfortunate.
Okay, thank you for saying more about that. I appreciate it. And the only other thing I wanted to say about art, so it would have to be Park District, not just DCASE. So I am absolutely welcoming of my friends from DCASE, but the Park District, generally speaking, this is our property. We're going to have to probably have agreements with individual artists, whatever we put on the site, with possible rotating opportunities. But we work together all the time. So I think we'll be able to figure all of that out. And I am starting to think that, and I don't know how we would do do this, and I have a feeling my design team is going to throw something at me. But this conversation, the conversation around how we develop the concepts of how to represent Dusab and Kittihawa and all of the contributors to the city here is such a rich discussion. I think a lot of you have recognized that maybe we do need a different forum for that. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think I'm starting to agree with you. It's an intellectual discussion, but also one that has to eventually end up in a design for the park. So I think it's a great idea, and we should all kick it around and come up with maybe some way that we can have that and invite lots of voices to participate so that everyone feels like they've had an opportunity to discuss it. So thank you all for your important comments. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
I know that we're over time, but we do have 3 additional questions. The next one would be from Nicholas Paul, followed by Ephraim Martin, and then Edward Davis.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. First, great thanks to the design team. You guys, you get your work cut out for you. It's not an easy task, and I hope you guys, you can navigate through that. One comment made earlier by President of DHA. My name is Nicholas Paul. I'm part of the Dusable Heritage Association. And it's kind of interesting. After 30 plus years working on this park, I think great progress has been made within the last year or so. But I don't want to lose focus on the significance of the park over small details. Yes, we all get a voice to share our inputs, but for the amount of work from the design team and even the host, the co-host, RaMona, Eric, Julia, I mean, you guys, you have done a lot, and we're a lot farther than we were 2 years ago. So to me, it's progress. What I would like to see is, yes, the park needs some kind of identification. I know somebody mentioned it's not on the project right now. Having a monument, which is the ideal monument, would be to Dusab and his wife, and perhaps his 2 children. That's inclusive, even though it may not be part of the budget, but that's something that needs to be discussed. That's honoring, the gentleman who joined the force with the Potawatomi tribe and make Chicago what Chicago is today. So I would hope they would, consider those facts and not taking for granted. I mean, today we're a lot closer to get this done than 3 years ago. So I thank everyone, the design team, all of you for your input regarding this, matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Ephraim Martin, you have a question, and then Mr. Davis had a comment or question.
My name is Ephraim Martin, president of Martins International and the Black Heroes Matter Coalition. As you may have known, in 2020, when during the height of the pandemic, we started the move for Dusable to give him rename Lakeshore Drive as Jean Baptiste Park Dusable Lakeshore Drive, a major monument no less than 25 foot, and a full holiday for Dusable. And of course, we want to thank all of you who have helped to make it possible. DHA, Dusable Heritage Association have done a marvelous job over the last 30 years, pushing and fighting for this park. And I want to salute them on that and all the people who have worked. I noticed earlier, first let me say, Mayor Lightfoot agreed that there should be at least a 25-foot monument, which she agreed to sponsor in many ways. However, she will be going out, and we want to make sure that this project continues. She did agree to the funding of such a project, and it was suggested to be at Michigan Avenue or even right there, if possible, at where the Dusable Park is, overlooking the Dusable Lakeshore Drive. So when you're driving along, you can see that massive monument to pull you into the park is another part of it that could be. But like I said, this is for another day to deal with monument. But what I want to say, I heard earlier that there will be no a restroom in the center. That is unheard of. I think we should, the committee that's doing such a wonderful job should work and get sponsored to sponsor a restroom for the park. You must have a restroom for a park. This is a serious park, and people will be coming from all around. They must have a restroom. And finally, trolleys are tour buses to take people to the park, since it's so kind of difficult to get there. Having some trolley from time to time to take people maybe from a downtown Chicago to the park is something that should be considered, in our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin. Mr. Davis, Edward, I know that you had put some additional comments about please no dogs. Did you want to add any additions to what you had put in the chat?
No, at this particular time, the issue of dogs is a sticking point with me. I know that Millennium Park has a no dog policy. And I think that the significance of having a no dog policy at Dusable would be equally as valued, simply because there are numerous parks for dogs, but we have very few parks now that only include people. And I'm a person who uses the park very much, and I would like to be able to go to a place with tranquility where I did not have to worry about stepping in dog fecus for those who are unruly, or having to smell dog urine all over the place every time I wanted to have a peaceful moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis, for your comments. To RaMona's point, there have been some great comments in the chat. MM said it was a great initial design. The intentional use of the park space to be an educational learning tool about Dusable is awesome. Would be very nice to see more color incorporated and less gray. There was conversation about the founder that we already uplifted. Also, there have been conversations about the dogs, as Mr. Davis has indicated. Kitty Kurtz says the plan looks great. Glad to see that native plants and materials. Another one, great initial design. And there are several more in the chat, but I realize that we are running out of time. So I would like to turn it back over to RaMona and Heather and Carol for any closing comments. And I do again apologize for the audio issue at the beginning of the presentation. RaMona, Carol, Heather.
Thank you, Julia. I think that we're at 7:45. You guys, thank you so much for your comments. They've been very, very, very helpful, very robust. And I'm so happy we had an opportunity to have a discourse with you about our plans. I think rather than go into detail about our next steps, I think that we can just summarize by saying that we're going to take all of this information and go back and continue our designs. And we have another meeting scheduled. I think it's in, Eric, you can help me maybe, June?
It's to be determined. We'll definitely get a notice out, but I think we're shooting for somewhere in the middle of our summer, probably June, July. But we'll firm that up as the date gets closer, and definitely give you a adequate amount of notification.
Yes, we will. Heather, was there anything else you wanted to close out in final words from the Park District?
Thanks, RaMona, and thanks to the team for a great presentation. And thank you to the community and so many members who came here tonight, and agencies, because I know a lot of our agency friends are here too. I saw some DPD as well as DK's folks. Thank you so much for your participation tonight and your thoughtful comments. You've given us a lot to think about and a lot of things that we still have to work on, and we will take them to heart. And we look forward to coming back and trying again in the next couple of months. And we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Again, you all, thank you and have a great evening.